Welcome to another live stream, guys. Not too surprising to see next to no volatility over the weekend once again, but with the weekly candle closing in less than an hour, I figure I want to dive into a few charts for some potential additional setups to watch for and so on. So with that, if you appreciate these daily live streams, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. With holidays wrapping up, I'm ready to start watching the charts more aggressively once again, you guys. Luckily, during the holidays, not much has really changed for Bitcoin. I'm still in the same two short positions I've been in since before Christmas, as we are just kind of chopping around sideways here. But let's take a look at a few potential support zones as well as some potential resistance zones, shall we? And guys, notice that I did end up starting the stream just a few minutes late. Sorry, I was actually mentioning to VIPs about a short position that I was taking, just because this is just another typical STUBER fib setup. So unfortunately, it played out so fast that by the time I finished typing, we're already at my first target here. But basically, my reasoning was no different than any typical STUBER fib, you guys. And basically, what I was telling VIPs earlier this morning was I was really watching this level here at about 87.5 thousand US dollars. And my reasoning for that was just watching the MDX trend master on the 5-minute chart. And the fact that we had this series of higher trending sell signals as well as higher trending buy signals over the course of the weekend here. This was our last pivot for our highest buy signal on the trend. So I had mentioned that even though we just briefly ended up breaking that level, that's a bit of a warning shot fired to me. So the fact that that basically confirms this as my pivot point. And if I pull a Fibonacci from that, notice that we ended up filling this purple box here, hitting the 886 absolutely perfectly. So hit my first two orders there. Never quite hit my third entry there, and I have already canceled my entries, my entry here and here, just because we have hit my first target and already getting close to my second target. So if we end up hitting my second target, which is basically 87.6K, just front running my 214 fib a little bit, if we end up hitting that take profit, I'm going to bump my stop loss to break even. My average entry is currently, let me just double check that. It is currently 87,996 US dollars on that. So I'm going to be bumping my stop loss to break even relatively quickly here, hopefully. But like I said, I am already in two other positions. This is just more so looking at the lower time frame, looking at this as a potential scalp setup. And like I said, already hit my first scalp target there. But my two other main positions, still in from, like I said, nothing has really changed with the structure, but this was the resistance that I've been watching on my last couple previous streams. I was talking about the fact we had that low, lower low. This was our confirmed lower high, just a nice little swing fail there with a typical rejection. So since setting that, basically we haven't broke anything even on the micro trend. But as far as the actual 4-hour trend, I mean, I've been quite vocal about this for a while. I actually want to see Bitcoin smash through 96K before I get any real bullish feelings about where this market is heading, because I want to actually break out of this big 4-hour trend. Well, not even trend, just this range, if we are going to see anything exciting from the bulls. Because at this point, even though, yeah, it's nice to see that this is the strongest we've seen Bitcoin perform, in a couple of months here, basically. But just like it did back here, we chopped around sideways before taking a continuation to the downside. And that could be what we have right now. Obviously doesn't have to be. I would love to see Bitcoin do something like this and start staircasing higher, and then I can start longing the dips in that case. But the fact that we haven't had that yet, I'm still favoring the bearish side of things overall. Yesterday, I played a little bit of a long. It didn't run for very long, but I was just basically playing, like I was talking about, this trend of higher buys and higher sells with the MDX trend master. But that was very much just not really looking for a large move, but more so just bumping stop loss up tight. And eventually it ended up getting stopped for a very small profit, but more excited about my short position still. And like I was talking about, you guys, just like what I have here. This is just a typical Stuber fib setup where we break a support level, pull back to retest resistance, and then get that move. Those are the setups that I love to trade, guys, and those are the moves that I love to show basically in my free Telegram channel. So guys, for those of you who are interested in seeing way more examples of basically how I'm looking at the market, some of my trade setups, strategies, and so on, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen and sign up to BloFin to gain access to the current as well as future promotions that they are just pretty much always giving my followers, you guys. And that also gets you access to my private Telegram channel as well when you sign up. So just a couple extra bonuses for you there. But yeah, so far, guys, like I said, the fact that we saw Bitcoin lose that higher buy trend on the MDX Trendmaster indicator here, not that it's the end of the world or anything. This is just a 5-minute setup that I played here. But I do think that it's at least very possible, and this is what I was telling VIPs this morning, was that since we ended up losing that 87.5K level, I think it's very possible we come back down and test the bottom of this range here. And that's just basically pulling a fib from just our current local range, right? Nothing macro or anything, just our current range, the bigger range on the 5-minute basically. But we never did end up testing these Stuber fibs down here. So I still think it's quite possible that that ends up happening. Not that we have to come and retest these support levels, but that's where I would actually be looking more so for a bullish situation and looking for long setups. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to longing into some sort of a long setup like this. Again, obviously not expecting all-time highs or anything like that, but just playing a buy level for what it is. I think if we come down here, it would make a lot of sense to get some sort of a bounce off those levels. So I just want to clean things up just a little bit and basically just have the bullish setup here. So I'm just going to map this out with a couple of boxes here. So we got the Stuber fib box and we have our swing fail liquidity grab fake out zone basically. So when I'm looking at a range like this, basically we have potential support starting at around 87K, because that would be just front running my purple box a little bit. But then giving room to the downside for basically all the way to 86.4K. If we start losing that, I start to worry that we are going to go much lower. Obviously, on the 4-hour, we have potential support a little bit lower. I've been talking about this for a little while now. That's basically support on the 4-hour starting around 83.6K. I've been talking about that 84K level just to front run it a little bit. But I still think that it's very possible we end up dropping and retesting support of this 4-hour range. But first things first, we got to see how we react with the lower time frames first. Before we consider those midterm time frames. So guys, if you do appreciate how I'm looking at the charts, just for a very simplified structural point of view, rather than all the fundamentals out there and trying to analyze the entire global economy, if you appreciate looking at charts for what they are and trading them for what they are, even more importantly, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And guys, let me know in the chat how you're doing. I hope you all had a fantastic holiday. Hopefully you spent some time with friends and family, maybe even took a step away from the charts. I did have my eyes on the charts throughout the holidays, but more so spending time with loved ones and not really diving too deep into things, because again, Bitcoin wasn't even really doing too much over the holidays. So sometimes it's nice to take that little step away. So yeah, Merry Christmas, guys. Happy holidays. Almost the new year, but I will be doing more streams before the new year, so won't throw that one out quite yet. But happy holidays regardless. And yeah, I hope you guys are surviving. I hope you are thriving in these market conditions. Love to see that the markets are at least, it looks like we're going to start seeing volatility kick back in here. The weekly chart, like I said, over the course of weekends for the last several months, you guys, weekends have just been absolutely sideways. I mean, I've started calling them sideways Saturdays because that's generally what they do. And I mean, you can see it here on the 5-minute, right? We basically got this little bounce off support and just traded sideways for basically 2 full days. So It's nice to see that we are starting to see some volatility kick back in. So hopefully we see some nice big juicy ranges form here. As far as this weekly candle close, not really changing anything. I don't really care. Okay, yeah, it's a red candle, but we're not really dropping this support level. We're also not really breaking any serious resistance levels. So the weekly not really showing me anything. I still think that if anything, it's just strengthening my argument that we might be in this kind of price action, right? The fact that this market cycle top so far, I don't want to say it's for sure the bull market top, but so far it's the top, obviously. And it has the exact same formation as last market cycle. Even the fact that we came down, bounce at the 886. I mean, we have the same thing. Even if we look at the RSI, where it was when we tested this 886, there's the level that we were at. Where did we get to when we hit the 886 here? I mean, even the RSI, so the relative strength of the market, is basically identical with the identical chart structure. So I still think it's quite possible that we get some sort of a bounce. And that would obviously make the Moon Boys and everybody get so much FOMO as soon as we started seeing, getting close to that 100K target again. I mean, if we end up getting that kind of a bounce, you are going to start seeing ridiculous price targets to the upside, when I think that it could just be some sort of a relief rally, a dead cat bounce rally, whatever you want to call it. But I would not be surprised to just see us chop around in a very large range for another month or two. If we're going to do anything like last cycle, obviously doesn't have to play out the exact same. Fractal patterns break all the time, right? It doesn't need to play out the same. It doesn't need to keep going on the exact same structure that we had last cycle. But so far, it's just absolutely bang on. So I don't really want to bet against it at this point. Look at AVAX on the 4-hour. I can absolutely do that in a minute for you, my friend Dan Rab himself. Speaking of altcoins, just looking at the Bitcoin dominance before I hop into altcoins here, you guys. Mixed signals on the MDX Trendmaster. I mentioned this yesterday on the daily time frame that we did get a higher buy signal. We still have a lower sell signal. So we have mixed signals on this indicator. So that's all there is to it. Basically, I would love to see the sell pressure from this momentum shift here. I would love to see that gain some momentum and push Bitcoin dominance off a cliff, because that would be a very good sign for altcoins and the market in general. But the fact that we're seeing Bitcoin dominance starting to try and show some strength again, that could be a red flag for the market again. So nothing real clear on this chart right now for me, but something definitely worth keeping an eye on for the next few days here. Ethereum, nothing has changed from my last analysis, still just bouncing around in that same range. AVAX on the 4-hour, I did actually just look at this chart right before starting the stream, actually. But basically, just like I mentioned yesterday, it's starting to look okay. I would still really like to end up filling this entire wick retest, but obviously the market doesn't give a shit about my feelings or my thoughts, so we don't necessarily need to drop down there. That would just be such a nice, clean play if we ended up losing and reclaiming that. Such a nice tight stop loss on that kind of a setup for the size of potential reversal that we would have there. But obviously, like I said, the market doesn't necessarily care about my opinion. So it doesn't look too bad right now. The fact that at least the micro trend, we ended up breaking some structure, just because we had, I mean, whether you want to look at, realistically, just from a micro perspective, we have that low, lower high. The fact that we broke that, this then is confirmed as our bullish pivot, basically. But even if you wanted to look at something with a little more structure to it, we could even say something like that, and we have broke this level. So even if we see a pullback at this point on AVAX, at least there's potential support on the retest if it happens. Obviously, if we lose that, then I think we would end up being going for that retest of that entire wick fill. But so far, there is potential bullish signs on the micro trend, basically. And even before that, even if we want to look at something more micro than that, you might already see it on my chart, but let's remove this. Just really looking at the micro trend since setting this bottom. This would have been my last high with a higher high there, and the lowest point between the two is right here. That's why I have this yellow line here at about $12.15. As long as we hold above this level, and I know it looks like micro analyzing, but just from a basic structure point of view, as long as the price can hold above this, I think that we will continue this micro uptrend. Basically, we lose that, then I start looking for support pulled from this level. If we lose that support level, then I'm looking for that wick fill. So that's kind of how I'm looking at AVAX right now. Currently, if I bring up the trend master, we also have a buy signal, obviously a much lower buy signal, but even if the trend is going to continue to the downside, we could be looking at a fairly nice move to the upside, where we look at something like this, just like I was talking about with Bitcoin on the 5-minute. We could just end up getting a bounce towards that 786, 886 fib pocket, or even that liquidity grab fake out zone. But either way, just basically working our way back towards resistance of that range. That is very possible at this point, just looking at the indicator like that. Hype looks very similar. Notice I have the same type of yellow line here. Looking at it, just the microstructure here. If this was our high, higher high, this is our lowest point between the two. So that's our microstructure. We end up losing that. Then we obviously have this is where our pivot is. And then just like how I was looking at AVAX, other than that, I'd be looking for that wick fill. Ideally, I really want to see these guys fill those wicks, just because that would be such a nice, easy, not even necessarily easy, because it could still end up taking a loss, but just such a clear invalidation kind of a setup if we do get a retest of those levels. So I would really like to see things push down a little bit further, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. So hype looks much like AVAX. It's trying to at least form some sort of a micro trend to the upside. So not all hope looks lost for some altcoins like that. A lot of altcoins look like they're at nice support levels. So that's something I don't want to rule out of the market, right? I would love to see that Bitcoin dominance get pushed off a cliff. That would be a huge green light for the altcoins. But as it is right now, I mean, a lot of altcoins at decent support. Solana still doesn't look great, hasn't broke any micro downtrend or anything like that until we get above this blue line here. Basically, that would be the micro trend. But realistically, there's our low, there's our lower low. Lower high is right around $147. So if we get a bounce, we have to start being careful of resistance around $140 for Solana. But that being said, it is nice to see that we found some support here. It's likely a 786. Yeah, 786 bounce there perfectly. I don't consider it a STUBER because it never actually broke that lower high. However, just as far as range support, it's nice to see that 786 form a bounce, because at the very least, looking at this from the point of view of the bulls, at least we never ended up setting another lower low, right? The fact that we at least avoided that is showing that, the bulls are at least showing some signs of life there. Eugenia says that Stu, actually, I believe you told me that on a stream once before, that apparently my charts look very blurry to you. I don't know if it's just because I'm zoomed out, but I should be on 1080p, 30 FPS. Everything should be clear. Hopefully the numbers are clear. If the candles were unclear, maybe it's just because I was so zoomed out. But I don't think that I can really do anything about that. Everything should be okay. It might be on your end. You might have to check your settings if you're on YouTube. Just double check it's not on auto and that it is on 1080p or something like that. It should be okay. On my end, when I watch it, it looks okay still. But thank you for bringing that to my attention. Just double check your own settings on YouTube just to see, because I know on mine, for example, if I go back and rewatch some of mine, sometimes they'll be blurry until I change my own settings back while I'm viewing. All right. How is this new Bitcoin short running? Looks like we're still working towards my second target there. Hope to see it eventually. We will see if we end up getting that, my friends. Anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. Just wanted to do a quick live stream before that weekly candle close, kind of touch on a few important levels that I figure, well, what I figure are important levels, anyways, levels that are on my radar. Just figured I'd throw them out there before volatility really picks up again as we get this weekly candle close here. So once again, guys, if you do appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And just a reminder for those of you guys who are interested in learning and seeing more examples of some of my favorite trade strategies, how I use Fibonacci's and market structure, just give more of my thoughts on the markets in general. Do yourselves a favor and scan the QR code to get into my Telegram channel. Either scan the QR code on the screen or click in the link in the description down below. And as I mentioned, my partners at BloFin are currently giving my followers this deposit and trading volume bonus as well. So that is another thing that you are able to take advantage of until January 7th, that's part of your sign up and getting into my free VIP Telegram channel. So with that, thank you so much once again, my friends, for being here with me. Appreciate each and every single one of you guys. I hope you guys are absolutely crushing it. Let's go into the new year with a fresh start here. Sometimes nice to like I said, take a few days off during the holiday season and just have a fresh outlook at the charts. And yeah, like I said, I am back and I am ready to start aggressively looking for those chart setups once again. So hope to see you guys in my VIP Telegram channel. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.